All right, now we're officially 1 month into the start of the Major League season for all the teams. Let's get down to business. Every week I do a panic video, tell you how worried you should be, who you should cut, who you should trade. Let's just make it simple this week. We're going to do the cut list. I'll tell you some players. It's fine. You have permission. Just move on. I know it's always hard to, drop players that you drafted relatively high or just counted on to be consistent to help do something for your fantasy team. And, at this point, you got to wonder, is it going to turn around? And for these players I'm going to mention, I don't think so. And before you accuse me of ageism, I'll just say two things. First of all, I'm older than you think. But second of all, these players, yeah, none of them are young first, second year players because we still have to be a little bit more patient with those players, give them the benefit of the doubt. And it's those veterans, the guys who maybe have already had their peak season, maybe on the downswing. We've seen this trend year after year where their skills are declining. I feel comfortable moving on from them now, and I don't feel like I'm going to miss anything. All right, let's start with a pretty easy one before I get to some of my surprising picks. Marcus Semien. Yeah, you've been panicked about him for a couple of weeks now, and rightfully so. Didn't think he was worth drafting, and now I don't think he was worth rostering because what tells us that he is? What are we waiting for here? As I have mentioned already before, we have seen that basically what Simeon is an accumulator, somebody who will just pile up runs and RBIs and to some extent home runs just because he's out there every day. I mean, he's been among league leaders in plate appearances for several years. And to his credit, he has earned that because he's been solid, right? He does a little bit of everything well, but he doesn't have a standout skill, right? He's never going to have a big season for power, right? 40 plus home runs. He's had a couple of spikes in power, but he's not someone who you consistently count on to get you even 30. And the same thing with steals. I mean, he had a couple of seasons back in his prime, which is now in the rearview mirror, where he got plus 20 steals in a season, but we're not even close to that. In fact, this year, he doesn't have a single steal, and that doesn't surprise me. And what you have now is basically a lack of power as well. He has 2 homers on the season, but a grand total of 12 RBIs. That's the only stat where you can say he's at least not hurting you. He's doing something. He just had 2 RBIs on Sunday. But again, he is giving you very little in terms of power, giving you no speed, and that batting average is at 150. Now, surely that will get better, but not much better. We're looking at, I think, best case scenario, he's into the 220s, 230s by season's end. I know there's a long way to go. I get that. But still, I just don't see the skills all of a sudden getting back to what they were a couple of years ago. This has been kind of a sad, steady decline. And the other part of the problem is this offense, just period. Look, Marcus Semien has been arguably the worst hitter in baseball. Actually, maybe not arguably, because the stats say that he has been the worst. In terms of run value, he is number one, or I guess we could look at it the other way. He is the worst hitter in the majors. He's in the first percentile in terms of run value. But if you look at the top 10 list, we got 3 Texas Rangers in there. And you could say, well, Semien suffers because of his offense, but I really think it's the offense suffering in a big part because of Semien. I'm still holding out hope for Jake Berger and maybe some of those other guys in Texas, not for Semien. Now, we've seen him drop to 5th in the lineup. I don't know if he'll ever deserve to be moved back up, and that just hurts his counting stats again. So I know you hate to just cut a player like this, especially where he was drafted, but I don't want him dragging down my team like an albatross all season. If you find somebody better on the waiver wire, do it. And another former All-Star, former fantasy standout that I'm pretty sure is done is JT Realmuto for the Phillies. I mean, he's supposed to be one of these catchers you set and forget, right? You draft him because he can help you in all 5 categories. He's on one of the best offenses in the league. He's one of those few catchers who actually steals bases. You know what he has? He's got 4 steals on the season. And that is absolutely all that you can point to say that he is worth having on a fantasy roster. There are so many catchers that have done better than him offensively so far. There's no reason to just keep having him in your catcher spot when you can move on and when you can stream, when you can do something better. In terms of weighted runs created, WRC plus, this is an overall measure of exactly how valuable players offensively Real Muto. Look, this is at catcher, just the catcher position, which it's a struggle to find really good players once you get past the top 10 or so. He ranks 40th at catcher in weighted runs created. He's got a 79. The average is supposed to be 100. So he's well below average. Again, there's that many catchers who have done better than him, and sure, he could get better. But if you look at catchers like Bo Naylor or Liam Hicks, guys that you wouldn't even think twice about unless it was a deep two catcher league, those guys have been better than Real Muto. Honestly, the only thing he has done is steal a few bases, and that is definitely not enough. On the season, hitting 236, again, just one home run, 7 RBIs, 7 runs, whatever. You can get that from plenty of other catchers. So forget the name value. Look, he was at one time one of the best offensive catchers in the game. That time is well behind him. Now, there's a pitcher I was also very worried about this preseason, and he's not even that old, only 29 years old. But honestly, I think Zach Gallen is on the downswing of his career. I'm not completely sure why this is happening either. I mean, it's not like he's had a slew of injuries or anything going on, but the numbers bear it out. In fact, a lot of times, you see that a pitcher might have his ratios skewed because of one really bad start. It's the opposite for Gallen. If not for that one amazing start against the Yankees of all teams in the Bronx, where he went 6 2/3 shutout innings and struck out 13, and this was back early in the season when the Yankees were hitting the ball out of the park every other at bat. If not for that one start, his numbers would look a whole lot worse. And that's basically what's keeping a lot of people who have Gallen clinging on. The thing here is that his fastball, the four seamer, just keeps getting worse. And this has been the last couple of years coming. That's why I said I see it as a trend, and it definitely hasn't reversed this year. In fact, his ex-WOBA on the fastball, you can see, just keeps going up. And whereas at one point a couple years ago, he was great with all of his pitch types. It's just not the case anymore. In fact, the changeup is the only pitch he's got going on that's really been somewhat effective. So I can't really point to a reason why this is the case, but I know it's happening, and I know that he is not the same pitcher from before, and I don't see it turning around. So I know it's hard to drop a guy like that, but I will say I don't think you're trading him, because who is going to want to trade for him now? You try first, of course. You always try if you can sell. In this case, all these players I'm talking about, it's not sell high, it's sell while you can. It's sell for anything. And if you can't do that, look, maybe just cut ties. And this one's a little more predictable. Jose Berrios for the Blue Jays. We already know what he has become, right? It's, I'm not going to say soft tosser, right? It's not that bad, but this guy has never been, one who relied on velocity to blow hitters away. But we have seen slowly, he's just losing a little something off each of those pitches. And that's why he smartly had been using his four-seamer less and using the sinker more. And he does have plenty of other pitches to throw in there. But for some reason, he's reversed that this year. He's been throwing the four-seamer more and the sinker less. And the results have not been good. That fastball is getting pounded, a 389 batting average against. Even if he backs up and says, okay, yeah, let me throw that pitch less, he's still got to throw it sometimes. And his other pitches are better, but they are not great. And he just does not induce enough whiffs on those other pitches to make him as valuable. I mean, we're talking at a 19.4 strikeout rate right now. That's well below league average. Again, I don't see any way that's going to all of a sudden get better. On a team that is okay right now, treading water, but honestly, you can't count on a bunch of wins. I mean, what you hope for is if you're in a QS league and he gets you those quality starts, because he will go at least about 6 innings each time, but he's got to be good enough to still earn that quality start. Without that, you're left with a very lackluster strikeout rate, just mediocre ratios. Not the worst, but definitely not the best. Is he helping your team in any way? I really don't think he is. You know who else is not helping you anymore? I think Xander Bogaerts may be another one of those players that we look and say, yeah, we saw him in his prime back when he was in Boston, and now that he's with the Padres, even though it's a better situation in terms of team context, it's not the same Bogaerts. Last year was definitely a disappointment. We all know that. We thought, oh, maybe he bounces back. Maybe, he just wasn't healthy completely. Maybe. Well, maybe he's just not a great player anymore. Right now, we're looking at a 242 batting average, not a single home run, 5 RBIs, 11 runs scored. Okay, that's something at least. And 4 steals. I'll tell you what, if you take this exact same player and put him on almost any other team, well, you probably cut off a couple of runs from there. And the fact that he's on the Padres, a really good team, And the Padres run a lot, which is why he's getting these steals. And he's not really a big base stealing threat. He's not very fast anymore. If he was on any other team, almost, I would say he wouldn't even be considered worth owning in fantasy. And I'll consider dropping him anyways because, again, he's not helping you. The thing with Bogarts had been the batting average, right? He was never a huge power guy, never a big stolen base threat, get you some help there, but really, it was somebody you could think maybe hit 300. And now he is far from it. And I'd say he could get back to that, except that now we're seeing consistently 2 seasons in a row, he's not the same hitter. The chase rate is actually still pretty low. His plate discipline is good, right? He walks a fair amount. He doesn't strike out that much, but he is not getting quality contact. The barrel rate and the hard hit rate are super low. Bat speed is below league average as well. So while Bogart is, 32 years old, you figure he should still have a couple of good years left in him. It's not been very good, and we are definitely far from great. And I know it's always tricky with closers. Well, look, if you're in a league where you don't have too many dependable closers and you want to be patient, I get it. But if you can afford to move on, let's look at two guys I'm okay parting with because they may not pick up another save for a while. Now, first is Trevor McGill. I've talked about Trevor McGill recently. Thought he might be hurt with that knee, and it seems like he's fine. No IL stint. He's still back out there pitching, but then he also had another bad outing. And my worry with McGill isn't so much that he's going to be bad all season, although right now his ERA is about 5 still. He's got some work to do. It's just that he might not be their best option. They got Abner Uribe, who's been great this year, and then they have Craig Yoho, promising prospect who just got called up. A lot of people think he could be a late inning option. And then waiting in the wings still in the minors is Jacob Mizorowski, who could be the next Josh Hader. I just don't feel as comfortable as I did before the season thinking that McGill is going to be the closer. I actually dropped him myself about a week ago. And so even if he's not injured, that's great news. But the fact that he's not picking up saves is definitely not great news. So I'll say this, if you don't need him, I'm comfortable cutting him. And the same goes for Ryan Walker with the Giants. Now, his last couple outings, he hasn't given up a run. He's starting to look better. But we know with relievers, it doesn't take much. All it takes is one more bad outing for the numbers to inflate once again. But my concern here, as I've said, is that Camilo Doval might just have that job back because he has looked really good this year. He seems to be the guy who's now back in the circle of trust. And so if Doval is the closer, Walker isn't. Look, they might still mix and match. I get that there might be save opportunities for both. But if you're getting a part-time closer with so far a sketchy start to the season, is that something you really need on your roster? Every league is different. I get it. If you're in a saves and holds league, sure, I would recommend keeping both McGill and Walker. If, like I said, your closer situation is pretty sketchy and you just need somebody who could get you saves, okay, fine. Then you might want to keep Walker. But if you don't need him, you can let him go. All right, so that is the cut list. I know sometimes those decisions are hard to make, but you've got to stay on top of things and be proactive. Don't wait until it's too late. And always keep it locked here for the latest fantasy baseball advice and check out all the latest videos we got for you.